Hello, I'm Maral Kazazian, Director of Arpa International Film Festival. On behalf of our visionary founder, Sylvia Minassian, jury liaison, Sonia Keshishian, and the entire Arpa team, I would like to welcome you to our 24th annual Arpa International Film Festival, which is the signature event of Arpa Foundation for Film, Music, and Art. Due to COVID-19, for the second year, we are going to be streaming our films instead of having it in beautiful theaters like we always did with our partner Eventive. We started our festival on November 21st, and it will run until December 5th, during which time our audience across the globe will be able to watch 70 films from 21 different countries. Today, we have the distinct pleasure of welcoming our director and producer of Cuba in Africa, Mr. Negash Abdurahman. Before speaking with him, we would like to show you the trailer of Cuba in Africa.
¿Qué intereses tenemos nosotros allí? Estamos cumpliendo un elemental deber internacionalista cuando ayudamos al pueblo de Angola.
Cuando estábamos en la celda de castigo, la única forma de saber que estábamos vivos era chiflando la guantanamera.
2.400 cubanos murieron combatiendo en toda África.
Uno empezaba chiflando la guantanamera. Donde la dejaba, continuaba el otro. Y donde la dejaba el otro, continuaba el otro. La guantanamera era la única forma de comunicación entre nosotros para saber que estábamos vivos.
Y así venían muchos niños del sur, faltándole piernas, brazos, se han mutilado por la explosión de las bombas y las granadas.
Fue la quiebra de la columna vertebral del régimen del apartheid.
The Cuban people hold a special place in the hearts of the people of Africa.
Y ese día Mandela le dirigió la palabra a la nación cubana. Quiero que sepan que sin la participación de Cuba, yo todavía estuviera en la cárcel.
Yo siempre pensé que regresaría. Estuvimos rato abrazados, mucho rato.
Hemos cumplido nuestro sueño de que África fuera libre de colonialismo y de la apartheid.
Ellos murieron luchando por la dignidad y la libertad de todos los hombres. Para ellos, gloria eterna.
Okay, welcome to our Q&A with Negash. Please tell us a little bit about how did you find this story and what was your experience in making this beautiful documentary?
Thank you for having me here. I'm used to being behind the camera, not in front, so that this is quite an adjustment. I'm an accidental filmmaker. A friend and I went to post-apartheid South Africa right after Nelson Mandela came to power. We live in New York, but we are of African origin. We were, my friend and I were both born and raised in Ethiopia, but have lived most of our lives in this country. So we went to South Africa out of curiosity and saw how cruel apartheid was. We toured these places, the Apartheid Museum, Soweto, Johannesburg, Khayelitsha, Robben Island, where Nelson Mandela was imprisoned. And we were really touched as people of color, we were very touched by how oppressive that system was, how demeaning it was, how it was set up to break the spirit of Black people. And years later, I end up visiting Cuba, and I could not believe, I had heard that they were in Africa, but I did not realize the magnitude of their involvement in Africa. And once I came to understand that they sent almost 500,000 people, this island of 9 million people at that time, under a lot of pressure from the United States. I said, how did these people pull this off? Really, this was an unbelievable story. And I looked if anybody else had done a documentary on this, and I did not find anyone who'd done that. So that's how my journey began. And I read 2 books initially by Professor Piero Gliese at Johns Hopkins University. He wrote 2 definitive books on this issue, the role of Cuba in Africa, and it took him 20 years to do that. His work influenced me a great deal. And what I found out was this very important story was buried in kind of Cold War propaganda, and who sent them there, are they Russians or Americans? And so it was a very important story, and as someone of African origin, I thought it was important that the world gets to hear this.
Thank you so much. That's one of the things. I know it took you 10 years to bring this to the screen, and what were some of the challenges you were faced with during this time?
There are 2 kinds of challenges. First of all, the Cubans will not give me access. It took me 5 years knocking at their door. They don't like to toot their own horn, and they don't like to really very reluctant to tell their own story, or if they do it in such a formal way. It's like one battle after another. And so it took me 5 years to convince the Cubans to open their doors and their archives. They have incredible film archives that they eventually ended up giving me access to. So that's the first challenge. The second one is funding. Nobody in America wanted to touch a story that kind of tells the truth and cast Cuba in a positive light. All the funding agencies almost universally turned me down. They said, this makes Cuba look too good. This makes Fidel Castro look good. And I was really interested in just telling the truth. And it's also, I did not want to change kind of the direction of the story. So the funding was the most challenging part of this. So I got some small, from one foundation, a small grant. The other was from family and friends, and I put up my own money. So that was a challenge. A lot of the people that work with me, with the moment the money ran out, they ran away. And so that was, to keep the project going, it was not easy.
Well, I must say, reading a little bit about how you the awards that you've won with this. I must say the 20 minutes, you're able to tell a story that is very, very difficult to do. Many documentarians have difficulty in shortening their documentaries to make it easy for someone to understand the story, because when you have something that's an hour and a half documentary, it's very difficult for someone to sit there and watch it. In your case, in 22 minutes, you're able to tell the whole story. Is this the original version, or is this a shortened version that you made? What was the process of bringing this to a very concise storytelling?
So this final version came out of necessity because we couldn't get funding. Just to give you the magnitude of the work that we did, I had conducted interviews anywhere from, the total is from 75 to 100 hours, a cross section of these Cubans who went to Angola. And then the Cubans gave me very unique, very unseen archival material that was up to 200 hours. And then we have 400 pages of transcripts, thousands of photographs, thousands of letters. And out of that, so this could have been a series, almost like a mini series, or at the very least, my plan was to do a 2-hour feature. So out of necessity, I had to compress this to a 22-minute story that essentially, from my perspective, really, I maintained my original vision. There are a lot of people who wanted me to change the direction, bring in the American angle, do this, and make it appealing to a Western audience. I wanted people to see the true story. And it was not about the craft, but I wanted to make sure these story of kind of the triumph of the human spirit, people who no one thought could pull this off, they pulled it off. And it's also, it's not just theoretical. Today, Angola is a free country with all its warts, with all its faults. Namibia, the same thing. South Africa, apartheid is no longer there. And a small island country was to pull this off. So I stayed true to the original vision. And we had maybe 2-3 other versions that we tried. But since the money was not there, I had to compress it into 22 minutes. And I'm happy with the way it came out.
Thank you. Watching the film, it's like that 420,000 people were sent to a country from Cuba. Mm-hmm. And they were told, some of the mothers of these young men who went to fight, they were told that they're going to Soviet Union. They weren't even told exactly what they were going to be doing. Just, expand a little bit about that.
Well, they knew where they were going. I think in the case of the prisoner of war, Carlos Alberto, what he was talking about was after he disappeared, because he became prisoner of war. I believe what the family was told was, he didn't come back. So they had to make up a story. And the family somehow thought he went to Russia for further studies or for another assignment. So they did not know that he was a prisoner of war in South Africa until he came out. But most people who went to Angola, almost all the Cubans knew exactly what they were doing. They were people, it was hard to believe, but there was such an enthusiasm. People were standing in line to volunteer to go to Angola. And that enthusiasm, I thought it was propaganda at first, but the more people I talked to, I spoke to the common soldier, nurses, cooks, generals, and a cross-section of Cuban society, and it was an incredible enthusiasm. I did not face anybody who was forced to go there. If there were, I don't know, but it was a certain kind of commitment that these people had. They were chomping at the bit to get to Angola. And some of them there was one guy who does not show up in the film. He was 18 years old. He just said, well, I just want to see another country. He was curious, but most of them knew what they were doing. Yeah.
Yeah, very, very interesting. And the way you made the documentary, especially with that Guantanamera, I think all the programmers who watched this film, they were all very enthusiastic when we were discussing the process of selecting the films that we're going to screen. This was definitely one of those films that got a lot of discussion among us. Can you tell us a little bit about that? I want, first of all, before I go on, I want to make sure that those of you who are watching this and haven't seen the film yet, please go see the film, because this is something that I'm sure not too many people know about it. So please tell us a little bit about that song, Guantanamera.
Well, Guantanamera is kind of like a Cuban national anthem. and just how that came up in my conversation with Carlos Alberto. He was very stiff and reluctant in the beginning. So I wanted to relate to these people at a human level, and we were talking about what it was like he left his mother behind. I think she was sick or something at the time, and then eventually when she found out he was a prisoner of war, the Red Cross came in. There were exchange of cassette tapes. The prisoners could send, Cuban prisoners could send cassette tapes, and then their families could send another one. And he got a tape from his mother at that time. And I asked him, what did the tape say? And he got very, very emotional. Whatever his mom said to him, like, brought tears to his eyes. And he said, no, I don't want to talk about that, and got really very emotional. And after that opened up, you know, that all the trauma that he went through, kind of a flashback of it came. And that's how we managed to kind of get a real honest, heartfelt reaction to what he went through. And it was like really, really tough. It's a much longer piece. Each one of these people I interviewed, it's about 2.5 to 3 hours. These are very long, involved interviews. But anyway, about the Guantanamera, I myself was very, very touched by his story and the idea of being in this prison in a country that they did not know, and that's how they kept this alive. And I knew we had something when I heard that.
Yeah, it's you know, as I was watching the film, I could tell exactly what you're just describing. I don't think anyone was forced to go. People were very touched with what was going on. Of course, it wasn't easy for them to tell the story of what they witnessed. You know, it's definitely was not easy, but nevertheless, I think they felt like they were doing something worthwhile, that their job wasn't, whatever it is they were doing, wasn't really going to waste. So tell us a little bit about your experience now with the fact that you completed the film. It's definitely a big accomplishment. It is one of the films that is nominated for Arpa short documentaries, and the jury is in the process of judging those films. Tell us a little bit some of the accomplishments you've had with, what have you done with this film?
Well, I just put it in September. We started submitting it to festivals. Towards the end of September, we started submitting it to festival, and the reaction was immediate. And I was really, really moved. This project has been exhausting. A lot of travel, a lot of work, and dealing with multiple languages. But what really, the reward for me has been emotional, meaning the world got to see the story, and the festival to which it's been presented. So far, we have won 12 Best Documentary Short Awards, including from places as far as away as Hong Kong. And I was humbled by that people in Hong Kong could relate to the story. We got an award from Chile, we got an award from Rome, and the most recent award I got was from Pan-African Film Festival in Cannes, France. I was there last month, and it was really, really humbling. I got 2 awards. One of them is a special jury award. It's called the DiCarlo Award for Peace. And the jury said, truth telling promotes peace. And I was humbled, and I'm humbled by that brings in this story, because this is a story that was buried in a lot of Cold War BS, so that the world would not see it. So that recognition, it was a vindication for all the hard work we put into it. And my feeling is, I'm a messenger. I'm not the story. The people who did the heavy lifting were the Cubans. It's an amazing, amazing story of sacrifice. Again, sounds like a cliche, but the triumph of the human spirit, what these people were able to pull off under tremendous pressure from the United States, a small island nation of 9 million people at that time, to travel 10,000 kilometers away and go to Angola and pull this off. So the reward has been just this story being seen by a lot of people in the world. You know, that's like a huge reward for me. And the Cubans, the people in the film, and Cuba, the country, is delighted that these people have been forgotten, really, even in their own country. And Africa had forgotten, and I'm an African, and I'm telling my fellow Africans, it was screened in a city in Addis Ababa, which is the headquarters of the African Union. On a couple of occasions, more than 2,000 people turned out to view this film. And I thought it was very important. Africans recognized who stood by their side in their time of need. So I would say so far the reward has really been emotional, and just seeing this story out there and these Cubans who really sacrificed tremendously. Even, I mean, some of it is, we cannot put it across in 22 minutes, but I hope you get, the audience get the flavor of kind of what an upstanding people they are.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's very informative. When I was doing the search a little while ago, I saw that you just lately screened it in New York in a theater.
Yes, it was at the Greenwich Village Film Festival. It was screened at the Greenwich Film Festival, and New York is my hometown, and I'm happy. I'm happy to do that. And I think what I want people to come away with from watching this film is, this is kind of against all odds. What these people did, Cuba was the only power that went to Africa without expecting anything in return, that they did not take anything out of Africa, because everybody who goes to Africa robs that continent, gets something out of it, either brings out slaves or minerals or something. As the Cubans themselves say, the only thing they brought back were the bodies of their fallen heroes. And that's, in a transactional world that we live in, you know, that there is altruism, that people actually do something for nothing. I think that's a very important story.
Yeah, I think that's the message that I got from your film, that made it very obvious that this was a different type of documentary. This is something totally different than what perhaps has been made in the past. What is the future? What are you planning to do with this film?
Well, I would love, I mean, we have a lot of material. If there was funding, we could do a much longer version of it. But immediately, I would love for one of the streaming services to pick this up. Really, at the end of the day, the most important thing is I want as many people to see this film, people who have been under oppression, under colonial rule, people who have been subjected to domination, who could relate to it. Because sometimes the question I was asked as I was preparing this is, you know, why should I care about this story? This does not appeal to an American audience, or a French audience. This is the kind of responses I got. And I felt it was an important story without changing the core of it. So to answer your question, immediately, I would love to work with a distributor who's reputable to get this story out. And if the money is around, we have a lot of material. As I said, we have 100 hours of interview I did in B-rolls, and 200 hours of very, very unique archival material that Cubans never released. And really, it's a big story. But I cannot chase the money anymore. It's tiring, you know. So I put up mostly my own money, really.
Mhm.
So if you can point me to a direction, people who will help with this, I'd be glad to.
Well, you know, that's the dream of every filmmaker is we want the filmmaker to get the audience that they deserve after they put in 10 years of work in putting a documentary together. And hopefully people who are watching this and people who will watch this film in different festivals will help the filmmakers achieve their dream. Anything else you want to tell us about the film? I know we're a half an hour into the film and in our conversation. If there's anything else you want to tell us about the film or any future projects that you're working on, please let us know.
Well, I want this story to be seen first. And I mean, I think this film has, once people see the full material, has a potential to even be like a feature, not just documentary, feature film about kind of the triumph of human spirit. Again, that's what I come back to. But I just want to tell you one anecdote about. There are many sub-stories within each story because everybody I interviewed, they have a story to tell. And there's a Black woman in there, Serena, that you see she talks about the kids eating rats. You know, her story is unfortunately we can't tell everything in 22 minutes, but within that, she was a Havana housewife at the time. This is a young couple who had just gotten married. They had 3 kids. So they, husband and wife, promised each other, whoever gets cold first would go to Angola, and the other one would take care of the kids. So she got cold first. She goes to Angola, and I get this from the letters that husband and wife wrote to each other. So they were true believers, and she was in Angola. She was a nurse and she was providing medication, but these engineers get killed. Then she had to pick up the bodies, inform the family, call in airstrikes. Like, this woman rises to the occasion, amazing stuff, and survives through dangerous stuff. But in the meantime, this exchange with her husband, like a Valentine's Day letter, says, you know, how is the family? I miss you, I love you, but we will prevail. Angola is going to win. It's like really heartfelt kind of stuff that they did at an individual level. Like, her own story alone is another sub story. That's how powerful the experiences people went through. So, and there are a lot of anecdotes and other subplots and sub stories that I hope the world get to see.
Yeah, I also want to make a comment about the soundtrack, the music. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because it's very, you know, it's usually a small, very important part of any film, but in this one, it's especially very touching.
Everything was deliberate. We spent a lot of time, you know, checking the sound, the kind of music it was, and we spent quite a bit of time on the music. But by the way, this is in 4 languages. It's in Spanish, English, French, and an African language. So we had to not only do this translation, but the music was very important. So we spent a lot of time checking the sound. Does it go with the, you know, with the tempo? Does it go with the story? So that's the kind of tedious part of filmmaking. And I'm a first-time filmmaker, by the way. I'm just like, I came into this by accident, but I knew the story I wanted to tell. So thank you for bringing up the music part, because a lot of thought went into it.
Well, I just want the audience to know a little bit about you. I purposely didn't want to say this from the beginning. You know, when I was just looking to see who Negash Abdurahman is, he's an Ethiopian-American filmmaker and educational technology consultant, founder of RI Systems Incorporated. His acclaimed award-winning film, Cuba in Africa, was years in the making, overcoming many obstacles to tell the truth, mostly untold in the US, of Cuba's revolutionary internationalist mission from 1976 to 1991 that was decisive in winning the sovereignty of Angola, the independence of Namibia, and securing the unraveling and defeat of apartheid South Africa. So this is who our filmmaker Negash is, and I hope everyone enjoyed our conversation with him. And our festival will continue, as I said earlier, until December 5th, at which time anyone across the globe, please get on Eventive. All you have to do is sign in with your email address, and you will be able to watch any or all of the 70 films from 21 countries. And this year we have some countries that we hadn't had films for, previously during the last 24 years that we've been, actually, just to let you know, Najal, you were asking earlier, Arpa International Film Festival is one of the longest running festivals in Hollywood. So we're very proud of that. Again, none of this would have been possible without the effort, just all the effort that is put with all the volunteers under the leadership of our founder, Sylvia Minassian. And again, it's we keep going year after year. She has the stamina and the energy to lead our organization of numerous volunteers. And we are hoping that next year is going to be our 25th year, and hopefully COVID will be gone by then. And our plan is to have in-theater experience once again. It's totally different experience. When you sit in a theater with hundreds of people, that's when you really get the energy and when you get to meet the people personally. And we are hoping that all our filmmakers who are going to be joining us virtually this year will be able to join us in person. We will meet you and talk to you and help each other tell your stories, the filmmaker stories, because that's what makes the world go round. And thank you again. I want to have a special thanks to our technical director who joined us this year, John Santos. And he's the one who's been running the technical portion of this virtual conversation that we've been having with our filmmakers. And thank you again to all the volunteers of Arpa International Film Festival.
And thank you for having me here. I'm really honored to be here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.